This morning did not start well. I had cleaned up someone else's puke, and the smell was still somewhere in my head. I had images of her puking in my sink going through my mind all morning, and she was no longer cute to me, filthy. All this while, my phone kept ringing. It was Isan, and he kept calling incessantly. I had a ground rule: never pick up Isan's call until he calls you for the sixth time. If he calls less than 5 times, then it must be something frivolous. It had been 1 year in Hindu college, Delhi University, and there had not been a single day that he had not called me to let me know about the scheduled lectures, the extra classes, the extra notes that I might need, etc. My default state was to ignore his calls. I picked up the sixth call. "Why don't you pick up my calls?" Isan said, angrily. I was a little startled. I said, "What happened?" "Okay, next time, please pick it up the first time," he said. "Yeah, right." Isan told me that a tax planning professor was less than impressed about being paid to mark my internal exam papers. I had decided to leave the examination paper empty. A little leniently. "The professors want to talk to me in person now. Your father cannot buy everything," Isan had said once. He was not quite right. My father was a wealthy man. I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth, or diamond. You get the drift. My bank accounts were always loaded. Credit card bills were never a problem. The car I drove, the house I lived in, it was all his, but still mine. Last year, when I had screwed up my board exams, and it looked like it would be hard to get into a Delhi University college, I had called up my father. Next day, I was a Delhi squash champion, and I got through BCom honors through a sports quota. Not bad at all, was it? I never hated to study, but when you have everything, education is never the top priority. My father was kind to me, but was not without reason. My parents were divorced, and we were never on talking terms. He was a stranger to me, and I was brought up fatherless since I was 8. I did not miss him until a year before, until the time mom was alive. He had some point of contact in my family. However, when she lost her battle to cancer last year, he had no one left. The car, the house, the gym. All these were his attempts to buy me. I was greedy enough to let him buy things, but not as much to sell myself. I drove all the way to college to meet the honest, upright, asshole professor of mine. Why couldn't he just accept the money and shut up? I always assumed that the professors are poorly paid. Why would he turn down extra money? "Have you thought about what you will say?" Isan asked as soon I got down from my car. "No, he wants to meet me, right? He wants to talk, not me," I said as I walked towards the professor's office. "Binoy, listen." Isan was always full of motherly advices. Nevertheless, I could not ignore Isan either. If there was anything I knew about Become, it was through him. Well, not just Become, he had my back for everything. Yes, his son. Just go in and tell him that you weren't well and you had to go home. Tell him you passed all the other exams and that your dad was just concerned about your future. That's why his son. Why don't you go and talk to him? I joked. I did. Despite the frequency, his over involvement in my life never ceased to amaze me. I just asked him what the issue was, and he said he would only talk to you. He said, I'm sorry. Isan was asking for my forgiveness because he could not unscrew what he had screwed up. He was such a darling. Had I been a girl, I would have kissed her or hugged her. Well, may not be. No, man, it's fine. I will handle it, I said. If there is a problem, just call me. I will be in Kamlanagar, okay? Sonil, I asked him. Yes, he said, as I saw him blush a little. Relationships, I tell you, they totally fuck up even the sanest of men. He had started dating a girl from Daulat Ram College. He had been a year and he was nuts about her. Ishan was charming, smiled more than necessarily, cared more than necessary, was unnecessarily fair, and was immensely likable. He was cute, like a little brother, like a panda. It often went against him. He was often too cute for any girl. Sonil wouldn't see that. I hated her. She thought I was a vain, ill-behaved rich brat and an asshole. She had asked Isan to stay away from me, but Isan wasn't that stupid. I walked through the corridors, smiling at every faces that I come across. I recognized a few faces, and a few of them recognized me. Last year, I had joined college with much fanfare. I drove big cars to college, argued with seniors and professors alike. Very soon I was infamous in college for my behavior and unabashed abuse of power I wielded. After a few days, I had stopped coming to college, and they promptly forgot about my existence. Mom's condition had worsened, and her chemotherapy sessions had started. I had to be with her. She had left her job, and her condition deteriorated with every passing day. Doctor had not given her much time. I wanted to spend every waking second with her. She had started losing herself to cancer, and it became infuriatingly tough for me. I had always seen her as a strong woman who brought me up as a single mother, managed work, and full worthless son. It was torturous to see her like that, frail, weak, losing weight and hair every day, vomiting and crying. Even behind those smiles she faked. I could see what she was going through. Binoy, she had said. Yes, mom. Take care when I'm not there. She had smiled at me. Don't say that. I had said to her, with tears in my eyes, I had never imagined my life without her. You will be fine. I was lying to myself. Every single day I saw her going through the pain little by little. I saw her die. I heard her in agony every day, and I wished I could take it away. When I used to sit on the cold, hard bench of the hospital and hear her cry, I wished that she would go peacefully rather than go through the excruciating pain every day. I would look at the life support equipment that kept her alive and think it's just making it harder for her. It was my mom. It was my mom on the bed. She deserved better. She had done nothing to deserve this pain. Finally, the day came when she left me behind. It was a very hard time for me when my mom passed away. I had stopped going to my college. I had prepared myself for the loss, but nothing prepares for you death. Nothing prepares you for absence. With her death, a small part of me died too. I did not cry for days. I lived in denial. I thought I would wake up someday and find her caressing my hair. It had become impossible to live any longer in that house. The silence used to drive me crazy, even months after her death. I used to go to downstairs after a good night's sleep and look for her in the kitchen. I used to leave water bottles everywhere thinking that she would be there and put them back in the fridge. I used to shout at night asking her for dinner only to realize that she was no longer there. I used to remember all those times that my mother wanted to talk to me after a long day at her office, and I used to be too busy on the phone with my friends. I used to regret every such moment. The uncelebrated Mother's Day, the birthdays I wasn't there with her. I used to feel embarrassed when mom used to hug me in public. However, in that empty house and in my empty life, I could have done anything to have her rest my head on her shoulder and put me to sleep. I loved my mom and I missed her every day. She left a huge void in my life. She was everything to me, my only family. I underwent therapy, and Deb's mom started to take care of me. Over this period, I had started to drink and smoke heavily. I did everything to fill up the emptiness in my life. Nothing worked. After a person I had loved the most died in my own arms, everything else stopped to matter. It took me a few months to get back to normal. I crossed a line of staff rooms with different names on them. Finally, I saw the name on bold letters, Dr. Yaski Asra. I knocked on the door and the voice from the other side asked me to come in. "Good morning, sir," I said. "Sit down, Binoy," he said politely. I was pleasantly surprised as I expected him to blast me. This is what he had called me for, right? His son had told me he had a reputation of being nasty with his students. He was 45 but looked older. With his short stature, a small punch, and unintelligent looks, I would have guessed him to be a government clerk and not a professor. It was hard to believe that he turned down a bride. He looked like someone who would have mattress stuffed with money from brides. "Thank you, sir. I noticed that you did not give your tax exam," he asked with slipping at his tea from the cheap teacup. "Yes, sir. Why?" he asked. "Sir, I wasn't well," I said, half-heartedly. I didn't want to lie. I just wanted him to accept the money and get lost. "So you left the paper empty?" he asked. "Yes, sir," I said. "You know that you can fail this subject unless you really do well in final exams," he said, and leaned on the table. "Yes, sir," I said. I added as an afterthought, "Sir, what can be done? The conversation started to sound like I was avoiding the speeding ticket from the constable. I felt like a girl who lifts her skirt in the porn movies to get an A from the old sex-starved professor. If it was anything like that, I was going perfectly for me. Now I just hoped he wanted money and not me. That would have been weird. He said, "Your father called yesterday." "I know," I said. "I'm sorry about that." "No, no, no." He said, his voice suddenly turned super polite. "Your father is a big man. That he called me was an honor in itself." "Oh, is it?" I said. I wonder if he was being sarcastic. I knew the look in the eyes. I was greed. It seemed he did not want the money. He wanted something more. After 10 minutes, during which I totally lost any respect for the professor, I walked out of the room. I checked my phone and it had 13 missed calls from his son. He was tenser about the entire situation than I was. Isan always thought of me as a lost soul. And maybe after what happened in the first year, I was, since I did not have any real friends in college. He always took it upon himself to see to it that it was not bored or feeling out of the place there. Binoy, he asked as I called him. "How did it go?" "It went well," I said. "I did what you asked me to do." I cried a little, begged him to score me, and then he said he would give me the average marks for the exam. "See, I told you," he said, genuine happiness dripping from his voice. "Not everything can be bought," he said again. "Yes, you told me," I said. I did not tell him what really happened. After I kept the phone down, I did what I hated doing the most, calling up Dad. These calls were important, and I could not run away from them. This paid for my life. "Hello," I called him up. "Pinoy, how are you?" my father said from the other side. "Remember the tax planning officer?" I asked. "Yes, yes, that the exam that you missed." "He lost your number." "Oh, he wants more. He has kids studying abroad," I said. I was right. Bedroom mattress stocked with money. Isan was wrong. My father could buy everything.